Mahesh, is well put. Sunil Kaul is with us as well, Global Emerging Market Equity Strategist at Goldman Sachs, who's with us. Sunil, let me start by asking you, there is a lot of expectation that there could be further focus on public Capex. Your report, though, says growth pace for Capex is now behind us. What is your thinking and what are you expecting?
No, I think that's right, because, I mean, as we know, the government actually increased Capex spending at a rate of 30% CAGR between sort of calendar 21 to 2023, those 3 years, and took the fiscal spending as a percent of GDP from 1.5 to north of 3%, 3.2, 3.3%. So there has been a lot of fiscal spending that the government has done in prior years. And our strong view, even coming into last year, was that those growth rates are unlikely to sustain. And so the government will reduce the spending on fiscal more in line with nominal GDP, which is what they announced in the last budget as well. But I think this time also we'll think that the allocations to fiscal spending would be in line with sort of high, sort of low double digits of 10-11%, which is in line with the nominal GDP. So they will effectively keep the fiscal spending as a percent of GDP somewhat constant at around 3% of GDP.
Yeah, absolutely, Sunil. And that view really stands out because you're not expecting a decided uptick, continued uptick in the Capex spend. Mr. Kanabar, coming back to you now, we discussed the big expectation on income tax earlier, but I want to move beyond that as well. Aside of that, what are the other major things that you would watch out for? There's been so much of a clamor for simplification, for reducing litigation, the TDS regime, TCS and TCS rates. Would you expect anything else?
So even if I think the issue really is the cost of compliance, and the cost of compliance is just going up and up and up. And when we spoke earlier about TDS and TCS, the question is it really doing any benefit to have such a lot of litigation? And coming to litigation, I think the issue really is that today we have a backlog in the tax department, which is enormous. So just at a first appeal level, you have almost a 5 to 6 year waiting, which is unheard of and which has not been there for the last 15 years. The first time we are seeing such a lot of backlog, which essentially means that if there is an addition at the tax office level, the tax office collects 20%. The taxpayer believes he is out of pocket with that 20% unnecessarily. And should the taxpayer actually lose out, the government is out of pocket on 80%, and you can't have this situation continuing. A number of suggestions have been made in this regard, whether one can go directly to a tribunal, whether more cases can go to DRP. And I'll be waiting with bated breath to see what comes out of it. And those are very, very welcome things.
Okay. All right. On the rates per se, on the multiple TDS rates, just in 10 seconds, Mr. Kanabar, what are the changes you'd expect?
So the point really is that you have a tax rate for salaried employees, which is equal to their income so that they don't need to file a tax return. Then you have a higher TDS rate for lotteries and crypto and whatever else. And then all the other TDS, can it not be a one simple rate so that one is not really litigating with the tax office as to what is the applicable section? Should the withholding be at 2% or 5% or 10%?
Okay. Well, let's see what comes. Sandeep, well, finally, at the moment, what is attracting you in the market?
I think at the moment, one should look, so my assumption is that we'll see some tax cuts. So I think we can look at beneficiaries of tax cuts. I think to that extent, Maruti looks interesting in the near term post-budget. If we do see a tax cut, small cars have been lagging. We all know that. At least sentimentally, these tax cuts can help. But there's also a pay revision commission, which has been announced by the government. Pay revisions will come through next year. So I think Maruti looks interesting at these levels. Other than that, it comes down to what happens in geopolitics. We have Trump and Modi meeting each other in February in the White House. I do expect some kind of a mini trade deal to come through. It's difficult to play this, but I think the Indian pharma sector is generally a beneficiary. So if we don't see any disruption, we definitely like Sun Pharma. So that's something. Otherwise, the private sector banks, I think the banking sector is a consensus call. I don't claim any special insight here. But some of the beaten down banks, such as Axis Bank or IndusInd Bank, could definitely look interesting because the system stability is definitely very strong.
Okay. All right. We are just about less than 10 minutes to the budget. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us. Shireen, last few thoughts from your guests?
Yeah.